I want you to never be fearful about the fact that, okay, UPSC is asking such questions and I would never be able to do it. No, if you do good level of PYQs, you do good dimension analysis, trust me, you will start seeing the patterns of predictability in the UPSC examination. The whole idea of micro theming, the whole idea of doing the dimension analysis is basically preempting that this is a particular thing. But yes, a difficult question or probably a different dimension could be asked, but I have to do it in such a manner that even if the question is difficult, at least I'm able to eliminate. What is the first insight that you get? That, okay, if you have this macro understanding, if you do understand micro themes, and if you analyze it from the perspective of micro themes, there is first predictability that for the current affairs, these are the subjects that I have to focus more, and it has completely shifted this focus from the static part to this particular dimension of current affairs. Dimension analysis का micro theme loop complete करने के लिए, this is what you need. Okay, these are the kind of themes that you need, and I am telling you, without this, it is not going to work. The one thing that was very predictable was the kind of options what they were. They asked about the habitat, where they're found, the nature, and one unique information. So today what we're going to do, I'll just give you a brief this thing. So we'll actually break down all the micro themes, and I'll also try and show you the new micro theme, going to do that. And the most important thing that you have to do is that today we're not only going to talk about micro themes, but we're going to talk about the dimension, because the thing is that probably you would understand the micro themes, but what makes UPSC unpredictable for a lot of people is that there are a lot of, you can download the micro themes, all right, but the dimension part, I think, is something that, it becomes like a lot of problematic thing, that how do I take out the dimensions? For example, for a particular topic, let's say I'd say bonds. All right. So where does it come? And what kind, when you're revising or when you're making like one page of notes or you were doing test and you see that question and you feel like, okay, where is this coming from? So this is what I'll try to focus more. And I think that is what makes the UPSC syllabus more predictable. And as part of the UAP, this is first step that we try to make, like, so predictable for the students also. And honestly, there is always a pattern. So let's start. Okay. So you have to understand that you cannot go by your instincts anymore. Do not follow your instincts that, you see some kind of a particular news, and you feel that, okay, this is important and I should read that, because PYQs are the only basis from where you understand that I have to whether read this topic or not. Okay, how much time do you have to give? 2026 years. So there were questions from ethics also. So we have probably just one new micro theme. Apart from that, all the micro themes are the same. And we have clubbed them in such a way that there you'll come around, like, including the 2026 paper, you have like around 200 to 209, 210. You'll get those micro themes for the prelims examination, and 177 micro themes that are for the prelims are common for the mains examination. So today we're going to talk about prelims and mains both. Amit, so basically, if you are, because it's an integrated preparation, and yes, you have given two mains. So if you want to understand that, like how new themes are coming up, and if you want to, like, go through the mains micro themes as well, because I'll be covering those, then I think you should attend the session. And it will just refresh your approaches. And sometimes you're very rigid about our preparation, that, we're following something. And since the syllabus and the pattern is also kind of changing, I would suggest that maybe sit here and you will definitely have some questions. So I will, and yes, if you're from Hindi medium, then I would say that for the Hindi medium also, the topics are the same, the language is different, but the questions are the same. So the micro themes, even if it's written in English, but the theme is exactly the same, right? If there is a particular question on a committee, so that committee, it's same syllabus in the Hindi and same syllabus in English as well. So this is where, there is a complete collaboration. So generally what happens when you're preparing in the beginning, and if you're preparing in the middle also, so what happens that when you're trying to make one page notes, when you're trying to give test, you'll find that you're scoring probably really less, even after studying for good amount of time. So that is why that is happening, is because of the fact that you're reading a particular book and you feel that, okay, I've read this book, but yes, we will provide the updated micro theme. I mentioned it in the beginning itself. So what really happens is that, you'd read a particular chapter and you'll read another chapter with the same amount of depth, and, you see that the questions you're not being able to solve. One reason could be the factual recall is less, and the second is that your dimensions are missing, the kind of dimensions that you need to prepare for that particular topic. And I will show you those through the PYQ questions and the dimensions. Okay. So first is basically आप micro themes ही miss कर रहे हो. You do not understand what is the micro theme. Particularly देखा जाए, so these are the subjects, okay? Macro view, this is the macro view of your entire syllabus: polity, geography, economics, Indian society, governance, IR, internal security, agriculture, art and culture, environment, world history. And these are the kind of questions. These are the mains micro themes. These are the mains questions from that particular micro theme. Then these are the prelims count, and this is a current affair count. See this. So अब just one thing that I want you to focus here, पहला ही एक सबसे बड़ा जो आउटकम और यहाँ पे एक इंसाइट होना चाहिए कि क्योंकि करंट अफेयर्स इज लाइक अ वेरी इंटीग्रेटेड पार्ट ऑफ योर प्रिपरेशन, इट्स नॉट अ डिफरेंट सेक्शन, ऑल ऑफ योर करंट अफेयर इज इंटीग्रेटेड इन योर स्टैटिक पार्ट. एक ऑप्शन आपको करंट अफेयर से प्रॉबेबली कुछ सब्जेक्ट्स में मिलेगा ही मिलेगा, ठीक है? So let's say देखो यहाँ पे देखो, so polity is given here, right? So there are, let's say, 45 micro themes, and let's say 295 questions have been come from the prelims examination, and mains में 106 questions are there. 52 questions here, if you see that 52 questions are from current affairs, right? If you see geography, it is only 25, but from economics again you see 45. I'm only talking about the major 4-5 subjects which have these numbers, that is like 295, 337, 284. These are the kind of questions that you're getting from these major 4 subjects. But here when you focus this particular subject, which is international relations, there are 52 questions in the prelims examination and around 57 questions in the mains examination. So do you see that 52 questions for something that is having these less micro themes into it? The weightage of prelims question is a lot. Similarly, you see science and technology, 52 questions from here also. 58 questions, the maximum number of questions from the current affairs is coming from where? Environment. So what is the first insight that you get? That, okay, if you have this macro understanding, if you do understand micro themes, and if you analyze it from the perspective of micro themes, there is first predictability that for the current affairs, these are the subjects that I have to focus more. And it has completely shifted this, focus from the static part to this particular dimension of current affairs. So let's say I'm saying this is the first part I have covered, that these I've picked this, it is ingrained in my mind: polity, geography, science and tech I have to focus, environment I have to focus, and also IR. And another dimension that is not common to anything, but we always put those in the sections of, let's say, miscellaneous, is I think I would say that map is another dimension itself. Now once you pick up, when you understand that macro view, you probably go for a crucial high yield micro themes. So you understand polity is very important. Polity has current affair also, so this is very important. Then mains micro themes, mains questions are there. Prelims also, it has a lot of weightage. And I will tell you something, okay, a lot of people will say that 2026 people had only 9 questions honestly, that we could call polity questions. But if you understand very clearly that, okay, 9 questions were there in 2026, but how many questions were there in 2025 and how many questions were there in 2024? So on an average, to reach a 295 number here, you need to have at least that many. This is the depth, right? Probably the theme is very crucial and it's very important. Fundamental rights, you will see that, the prelims count is like at least 28 questions, more than 28, 30 questions from only fundamental rights. So you understand, once I have understood that fundamental rights, judiciary, political theory, particularly, these are the kind of themes that are very important for me. So this is again second insight. That first insight was that I understand that current affair coverage is needed in this particular subject. So I will focus more when it comes to current affairs and these topics. Second is that you understand that these are the 4 major subjects that I have to finish first. Second insight is that. Third is that when you go into a particular subject, how much depth do you need for a particular subject should come from this idea that I will do themes which are going to cover 80% of my syllabus, and then I will go for the different other themes. Okay, then I will cover the miscellaneous themes. Now let's say, what is the second mistake? That is what I was going to talk about. Majorly मेरा फोकस इस चीज पे ज्यादा रहेगा कि ठीक है, थीम्स एंड क्वेश्चंस तो हम सब सॉल्व कर रहे हैं, पर डायमेंशन जो हमें बनानी होती है, जिससे कि तुम एक्स फैक्टर्स को समझ सको, फ्लैश नोट्स को अच्छे से डिसाइफर कर सको, दैट इज वेरी वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट. और वो कहाँ से आता है? ठीक है, उसके लिए हमें डायमेंशन एनालिसिस की जरूरत होती है. एंड आई विल शो यू थ्रू कपल ऑफ सब्जेक्ट्स, ऐसे विल टेक इट अप. ओके, लेट्स से ज्योग्राफी में जाते हैं. ओके, so for geography, once you see this is the geography questions that have been asked in the past. All right, all these questions are geography. Okay, this is from our micro themes, and I will pick up one system. I have picked up one micro theme, that is river system. So अब river system एक micro theme है. अब उसकी डायमेंशंस क्या होती हैं? तो अगर फर्स्ट डायमेंशन देखोगे और क्वेश्चंस को देखोगे तो यहाँ पे फर्स्ट डायमेंशन इस तरीके की आएगी, जो एक लेवल 1 होता है, ठीक है? जस्ट गो थ्रू द क्वेश्चन विथ मी इन अ वेरी केयरफुल मैनर. सो देयर वाज अ क्वेश्चन लाइक दिस: कंसिडर द फॉलोइंग रिवर्स, ब्राह्मणी, नागावली, Subarnika, Vamsdara. Which of the above rise from the Eastern Ghats? Okay. Then, which one of the following does not originate in India? Consider the following rivers: Barak, Rohit, Lohit, and Subansiri. Okay. Which of the following flows through Arunachal Pradesh? So here the level 1 question is what? What is the level 1 question? The origin and where does it flow into? These are the three kind of questions that they have asked. So if I'm reading river system, I should be able to understand that I have to do what? I have to do this level 1, that is where it's originating and where it's flowing. फर्स्ट लेवल ये हो गया, तो जब भी पढ़ोगे तो इसकी नोट्स आपके पास होनी चाहिए और इस पे आपको फोकस करना पड़ेगा. नाउ सेकंड होता है दैट इज सुपर मैप्स के थ्रू या कोई ज्योग्राफिक फिनोमेना या ट्रिवियास का. दिस इज द सेकंड लेवल ऑफ क्वेश्चन दैट यू विल गेट फ्रॉम रिवर सिस्टम, एंड दिस इज अ प्रेडिक्टेबिलिटी. यू आर नॉट गेटिंग एनी अदर क्वेश्चंस. दीज आर ऑल द काइंड ऑफ क्वेश्चंस दैट यू कम फ्रॉम रिवर सिस्टम, एंड दिस इज इट. लेट्स सी दिस. Identify the river of Indian subcontinent on the basis of the following information. Okay. So antecedent drainage system flows through 3 countries, originates in the Tibetan plateau, important for irrigation, does not form tributaries. Select the answer from the following. इन्होंने रिवर्स इंजीनियर कर दिया क्वेश्चन को. पहले क्या कहते हैं, पहले क्वेश्चन अगर पूछा है कि अबाउट द नर्मदा रिवर सिस्टम XYZ फीचर है कि नहीं है, एंड आपको ऑप्शन सेलेक्ट करने हैं. अभी इन्होंने क्या किया, फीचर्स दिए हैं, ठीक है, उसके एक रिवर की किस टाइप की होती है, एंड देन दे हैव आस्क्ड यू दी ऑप्शंस. ऑलराइट, कि ये जो ऑप्शंस हैं इसके बेसिस पे आप हमें बताइए कि कौन सी रिवर है. बट एक चीज क्या इसमें कॉमन है, ये कॉमन है, जैसे ये नर्मदा वाला क्वेश्चन है, द नर्मदा रिवर फ्लोज टू दी west while most other large peninsular rivers flows to the east. Why? It occupies a linear rift valley. It flows between the Vindhyas and the Satpuras. The land slopes to the west from the central India. ये देखो यू टर्न बना रही है, ठीक है. तो यू टर्न क्या हो गया, जियोफिजिकल फिनोमेना हो गया. मैंने क्या बोला, एक सेकंड लेवल क्या हो गया, दिस इज द सेकंड लेवल, कि भाई हमको क्या करना है. अब हम रिवर्स, बड़ी रिवर्स के बारे में पढ़ रहे हैं, तो सिंपल क्वेश्चन नहीं पूछने वाले हैं. दे आर गोइंग टू आस्क अस समथिंग मोर क्रिटिकल. सो व्हेन आई एम गोइंग टू रीड अबाउट रिवर्स लाइक ब्रह्मपुत्र, सतलुज, ठीक है. एंड ऑल्सो एक चीज समझो कि कई बार क्या होता है ना, जिन रिवर्स के बारे में पूछा जाता है ना, वो आसपास कहीं ना कहीं न्यूज में भी रहती है. सतलुज वाज एक्चुअली इन न्यूज, ठीक है. और जैसे इंडस के बारे में पूछेंगे तो बिकॉज इंडस वाटर ट्रीटी को लेके बहुत क्वेश्चंस आ रहे हैं, तो कहीं ना कहीं वो कनेक्ट भी आप बनाने की कोशिश करते रहिएगा. बट दिस इज ऑल्सो सेकेंड लेवल ऑफ क्वेश्चन. तो यहां तक समझ रहे हो कि कैसे डायमेंशन बन रही है क्वेश्चन से. क्वेश्चन तो आपको एक बार मिल जाएगा. ऑल राइट, आई विल स्पीक इन इंग्लिश. So do you understand the dimensions here? This is how we are creating extracting dimensions. First is origin, second is basically a trivial information probably, but also geographic phenomenon and super maps ke through you have to prepare. The level 3 is where they ask you about the major tributaries and attributes. For example, you will see this. What are the major attributes? With reference to the Himalayan rivers joining the Ganga downstream of the Prayagraj from west to it, which one of the following sequences is correct? Ghagra, Gomti, Gandak, Kosi. So they're given these options, and what will happen? And here also, when you read this, so try to ingrain this in your head that, you know what, they are going to ask me options. So when you're trying to do a DAE analysis, dimensional analysis, always think about the fact that, okay, they're asking from river system, but what are they doing? How they're playing with your mind is that they're, mixing. You would know Ghagra, Gomti, Gandak, and Kosi. But what you would not think about when you're preparing is that they're asking the sequence. They're giving all these rivers. All right. So when you're doing it again, and when you're reading it, try to make sure that I always make sure that I know the clear sequence for wherever the river. So Ganga is a kind of a river that you will always find in news. But would you expect still you would not be able to answer this question? They're asked one question related to Siachen Glacier in the past, in the recent past. And everybody had read it, but what my students told me at that point of time was that even after reading it, what happened is that I was not able to do it because I was so confused, because I had no idea that they will be asking me from the east to west or upper, or I have to remember the entire map. But once you see this and you understand the dimension, you start looking at the maps also from that direction, right? So this is the third level. Okay. And then comes the fourth levels, which is always requires a lot of factual recall. That is tributaries, related to tributaries. This is the question related to that with reference to the Indus River system. Among the following 4 rivers, one of them joins the Indus directly. So when you're doing tributaries, think about the tributaries, their direction and factual recall. So if you revise it again and again, certainly you will get that idea. And this is what the mentors do in the UAP, that we actually give that ideation that you're going to do a particular topic. Please make sure that you keep these dimensions in your mind, and this is how you're going to mind the dimension. So this is for a geography topic I'm telling you. So these are the super maps. Okay, these are available in the website for free. If you want, we'll share the link for these. In this, what we've done, if you see this map, so what I'm saying, that you need to have a multiple dimension. So whenever you're preparing and doing map analysis, I would suggest that make sure that for a particular river, try to find whatever is nearby. So as you see here, that if you see, I'm talking about Bhagalpur, okay, and there the river system is flowing here, okay. But what is nearby this? Okay, what kind? If you need super maps, we'll just share the link. The team will share with the link. Here also see on the top. Okay, so if a particular river is flowing, yeah, you will see that they have also mentioned glacier. So because they're asking questions like that, so now when you're reading a river system, you will think about that. Okay, if this is an Himalayan river, let's see what kind of glacier is also flowing, because probably they are going to ask that as a next dimension question next year, because the topic and river is going to be the same, but dimension might change, the options might change. And if you read it like this, trust me, the unpredictability goes, because you've practiced it. And even if you do not have an exact factual recall, your elimination practice will definitely work there. So these are the flash notes. Okay, so this is how you prepare for the prelims at least. So analysis of river systems in India. So you see these rivers. These are the sources, drainage system, rivers and state. Can you see this? I'm showing here analysis. So this is the dimension that the UPSC has asked from the previous year questions. Now here, what we have also given this in the flash notes. What are the rivers in the states, rivers and national parks, dams, projects and interlinkages. Also sometimes they ask about the lakes also. All right, what are the courses? See, this is an example of a particular river. What are these are the tributaries. So now once you see this, if you revise it multiple times, because you're expected to give a lot of tests, because as a part of UAP also we created. So I think see, these analyses are generally done by your mentors, but the micro themes are very clearly defined in the micro theme PDF. PYQs are categorized in a way that it won't be difficult. But see, dimension analysis, we do it as a part of UAP, but I am right now trying to tell you that if you want to do it on your own, this is how you should be doing it. Okay, because the dimension analysis probably is something that is your own exercise, because you have to develop your own thinking. Okay, stick with me, be here. If you have any kind of question about this, we'll again discuss it, right? But generally the mentors in the part of the UAP, they do help with the dimension analysis, because this needs the brainstorming part with the student to understand that whether they're getting or not, right? So do you understand this? Now when you have this dimension analysis, what really happens is that you start thinking about what kind of questions they are going to ask. For example, conservation initiatives and the projects, for example, linking of which river, right? And also water sharing between states, cities, historical sites could be there, river making borders between two. Like I said, Indus Water Treaty, that has been in the issue. So you will find some kind of dimension there. River, they'll ask you about the rivers. So that's why वो एक बहुत important ये चीज होती है. Yes, you will get it subject wise and topic wise. And Sayan, yes, we will share the starter kit. So we'll be sharing a link starter kit. You will get it there. Now let's come to the polity. So I shared one of the really major theme for a river system. What I want to do, and this is the homework, because action is what CD is all about. Civilsdaily does not talk about just like I've given you strategy and you don't do anything. This is a homework that you download the micro themes and you do the dimension analysis for a topic called geomorphology for which subject? For geography. You do it on your own. And if you have any kind of doubts, I will share a number. You can call there and we can discuss that. What is the problem with your strategies? All right. You can reach out to us and we can discuss it. Let's go for the polity subject. Now, I already mentioned for polity, fundamental rights and fundamental duties are very important. So let's see the dimensions. So first dimension is this. Very important is fundamental rights, but what is the dimension? So which right is placed under which article? How I'm going to prove this? See this question. Okay. Is the question visible? Under which of the following articles of the Constitution of India has the Supreme Court of India placed the right to privacy? See, this is a very obvious question. If you're a beginner, probably would not know, but right to privacy in Puttaswamy judgment came, right? So Article 21 is becomes a very kind of a very low hanging fruit also. So but sometimes also you get very confused because probably you might have read about a particular right. For example, let's say they also asked a question that this was the question and this was a Supreme Court judgment. Which article of the Constitution of India safeguards one's right to marry the person of one's choice? Now if you read something really clearly and अगर आप बहुत सारे मॉक्स देते हो ना तो इसमें दो ऑप्शन तो आप बहुत इजीली ही आप एलिमिनेट कर दोगे. दैट इज आर्टिकल 25 एंड 9 25 एंड 29. बचेगा आर्टिकल 19 एंड 21. सारी की सारी implicit rights are there in article 21, so it becomes an easier question. But still dimension analysis is very important, because if you do dimension analysis you see this question like that. And when I say that there is a predictability, there was a question on 2024 on right to privacy, and there was also the same question in 2021. So I want you to never be fearful about the fact that okay, UPSC is asking such questions and I will never be able to do it. No, if you do good level of PYQs, you do good dimension analysis, trust me, you will start seeing the patterns of predictability in the UPSC examination. And why I'm saying this is because at the end of the day, trust me, you only have to clear the cutoff. This year, probably the cutoff will be between 76 to 76 to probably what? 79 or 80. But then again, think about the fact, no, 76 to, if it is the cutoff is like 76 to 80, the paper was also very difficult, so the cutoff came down. So it gives a level playing field for somebody who has given probably, who's not given the exam before and is preparing for the next year. Okay. Is this clear so far? Next level is, let's say this was the putting up of an article under factual recall. What is the article, where it is situated? The second level is like factual, understanding what kind of right a particular is. And this is the most difficult. You know what happens? I'm telling you, a lot of people, mistake this and do silly mistakes. When we talk about those questions, no, I knew the answer, but because of my factual recall and revision, I couldn't, like, my revision was not that great. So I kind of, I just marked something wrong. These are the kind of questions, trust me. And I'm showing you 2026 question here. See, this is a 2026 question written like a novel. Okay. X was addressing a seminar on the meaning of the term law as provided under the Article 13, Part 3 of the Constitution of India. X explained that the meaning of the term law in the Constitution of India was very comprehensive. It included ordinances, orders, and even rules and regulations. Y pointed out that the term law in Article 13 also included custom or usage having in the territory, blah, blah, blah. It's a huge, like, major question. However, what you have to find out is that what it is the dimension. The dimension is it's actually asking about the article nature of Article 13. Okay, we have clearly understood one part. Fundamental rights and duties are very important. Then we have understood that we have to understand that where is the wherever the right is, I have to need to know that. Second part is what? That I need to know the features. And Article 30 is part of fundamental rights. So now you have a predictability. You know that I have to revise this portion again and again because UPSC is asking questions like this. But still, if I do the dimension, if I know the features, even if they kind of ask me in a way that is very twisted of a language, I will be able to answer it, right? So these are the questions that are asking about the classification nature of a particular right. Then the third level, the dimension 3 always comes where they connect the fundamental right with probably DPSPs, duties, preambles, or some kind of constitutional concept. For example, let's see this question. This is 2025 question. Consider the following pairs. Pairs. There's a provisions in the Constitution which is stated under. So separation of judiciary from executive is part of director principle of state policy. Valuing and preserving of the rich heritage of our composite culture is part of fundamental duties, and prohibition of employment of children below the age of 14 years in factories is fundamental rights. Now you have to tell me that how many pairs are correct. So here the fundamental rights is part, and I'm showing this particular question. Why? Because it's a part of our option, but still there is an interconnection. Okay, if you know this interconnection clearly, you will be able to write a good answer. This 2020 question also for the micro theme, to understand that how they're interlinking the fundamental rights with other topics is also important. So what is the third dimension? So what are they asking more about? They're asking about FR in preamble, FR in DPSP, FR in FT. Third dimension. So once you've done those previous dimensions, this is the third level of, and this is the most difficult part. But since you already know that I have to go so much deep in this particular topic, would you have a problem? Do you have a problem doing the hard work here if you know this dimension is important? Tell me, guys, in the chat. These are the flash notes. So let's say I've told this, these are the dimensions, this is how they have covered everything. What are the restrictions? What are the article numbers? What are the key provisions? Key provisions are the features. And what is the correlation? I talked about the correlation. You can see in the screen, this is the correlation. And I've just taken a screenshot from the flash notes that we provide, but it is very detailed in a manner. Detailed in a manner in the sense, actually, it's not detailed, it's very exhaustive, but very precise in the manner. Detailed is a wrong word because we have created in such a manner that you don't have to read it like Ram Gatha. Okay, that 50 to 60 pages of fundamental rights is actually concisely given to you in, let's say, what, 4 or 5 pages, all the important information. Okay, and interconnected as to based on what the UPSC is asking. Let's say this is a political theory micro theme. What happens in political theory that there is no way in Lakshmikant, tell me, open right now if you have Lakshmikant document and do it after this session also, think about this question, that is there a chapter called political theory in the Lakshmikant book? It's not. You will not find it. So what is political theory? It's basically concepts. UPSC every year is asking concepts from the polity and governance, and that is political theory. But are you going to read complete, some kind of theory book for that? Are you going to do political science major for that? Yes, the questions are solvable, but it's the thing is that somebody who has like an optional for that or is from a law background, it becomes really easy. The problem is that the language that they use, these are the kind of questions where they actually kind of play with the language. So I'll show this example to you. I'll show that example that where is the problem here. So let's say, take this question. Constitutional government means a representative government of a nation with a federal structure, a government whose head enjoys nominal powers, a government whose head enjoys real powers, a government which is limited by the terms of the constitution. The option is D. Okay, the option is D, but the options are so closely placed that sometimes when you're in a hurry, when you're in that examination hall, if your concepts are not clear and you don't understand that UPSC is doing this dimension and asking the dimensions like these, you become really confused and you do the silly mistake marking a clear option as a wrong. Okay, so when what happens, why this is important is that what happens that let's say I'm giving the mock, you actually course corrected before. What we make sure as mentors in the part of the UAP is that we make sure that it doesn't, you do not reach, that doesn't happen in the exam, that you reach a stage where you're doing such silly mistakes, because we are making you understand these micro themes and dimensions again and again. So when you're giving the mocks in the initial part of the days or from the sectional part of the days as well, where we ask you more multidimensional questions, so you do those mistakes in those mocks, but you do not commit these mistakes in the real examination. And I'm telling you, they always ask. This question was asked in 2019, I'll tell you, and it was in lot of news because here you see options. In the context of polity, which one of the following would you accept as the most appropriate definition of liberty? Protection against the tyranny of political rulers, absence of restraint, opportunity to do whatever one likes, or opportunity to develop oneself fully. Are the questions, are the options make it sure, clear? Is everybody, I'm telling you right now, can everybody solve this question, right? NCRT's the language definitely helps. When you talking about political theory, NCRT language does help. In fact, you can understand that also from the Lakshmikant. The problem is that there is no particular chapter. It is segregated in various chapters. So that's become a kind of a problem for somebody who's preparing for this. Okay. So this question, when you do NCRT, is what happens that NCRT, the language you find, for example, we always suggest students to do 11th standard NCRT because of the language. But at that point of time when this question came, a lot of people were not familiar with it because they always felt that this is something that, because the micro theme linkage is not there. Now they are not understanding the pattern that the UPSC is asking this question. This question was from 2019, right? And they've also again asked in 2021 two questions like that. So for become a micro theme, do you have to wait for such a long time to understand that this is what UPSC is asking? So that is why you have to preempt this. The whole idea of micro theming, the whole idea of doing the dimension analysis is basically preempting that, okay, this is a particular thing, but yes, a difficult question or probably a different dimension could be asked, but I have to do it in such a manner that even if the question is difficult, at least I'm able to eliminate. Okay, now the understanding the purpose and the feature and advantages. So these are the questions that they have asked about. What is the purpose? Why a particular? I'm talking about. So why are they even asking about it? Why it is important to have a limited government? What is constitutional morality? Why do you need rule of law? What is rule of law and what is the advantage significance of a rule of law? That is the next level of question that you're going to find. So when what is political theory? Understood. The dimension is three concepts and definitions. What are the purpose and principles? And the last is interlinking the principles. Interlinking the principles. Okay. For example, a very good example is this. Here, see this 2021 question. Which one of the following factors constitutes the best safeguard of liberty in liberal democracy? Liberty and democracy. Okay. And then they have asked about these principles here. So there is always an interconnection also from a political concept or a theoretical concept with the other. So when you do this dimension analysis through the PYQs, you understand that I would get that. These are the part of the, I'm showing you the X factors, that how definition of state, okay, types of government, rule of law, republicanism. And why I'm showing is this, that I don't want you to create like, a kind of a commentary on it. This is how you need to make notes. I'm also showing this for the fact that this is a flash notes and these are the kind of questions and nothing will come out of the dimension. This is the dimension that you need, and prepare notes and study it like that. Because if you make it too detailed notes, what happens is that you will not be able to revise it and you will not be able to compare it also. When you make it in a tabular form and precise form, you always see the keywords coming in front of you and that becomes easier for you to recall. Now tell me, is a parliament a micro theme? So the answer is, for some it is, but for somebody at CD, I would say it's not. I think it's like it's a topic. Okay. Micro themes, because parliament, you see the number of questions. Yes, exactly, Rajneesh, you're very correct. So there are multiple type of questions. In fact, inside Parliament, they have created dimensions. And once you do open the micro theme document, you will see that you will find all these dimensions there. For example, let's say Parliament. There is entire number of questions here, which is only related to what? They're only related to Parliament and the procedure. This is a question from 2026 that I'm speaking out aloud. Consider the following statements in respect of questions asked by the members in the Parliament of India. And the question was about start, unstart, supplementary question. And this is all ratification wala question. But they asked the procedure. So these are all the questions that I'm showing here are from the updated micro theme that contains the 2026 question. And this is the micro theme, Parliament X procedure. Then what are the types of bills? So money bill in the Parliament, Article 109 mentions special procedures, who's involved, okay, what is the lapse, what is the procedure. So when you're doing the bills also, there is a dimension here. Do you see the dimension I mentioned here, article and types? Then whether it lapse, when it does it lapse, and what is the procedure, and a person. Okay. This is how you prepare a micro. I will tell you exactly how to prepare a micro theme step by step. Once you understand this dimension analysis, this is the next thing that we're going to do in the session in brief, and it's very simple, don't worry about it. So this is our types of bill. Okay. Now, Parliament and House. This is another micro theme. Parliament and budget. Parliament X committees. This is a 2026 question, and they had asked about Committee on Welfare of Scheduled Caste and Scheduled Tribes of the Parliament. Okay. So schedules and the parts. So this is also a micro theme, schedules and parts. Generally, what happens is that schedules and parts are not explained in any kind of standard book. It's not. So we just kind of like we do the rote learning, but they're asking they're mixing questions and mixing options. So once you do understand that schedules and parts itself is a micro theme, you have to do what? You have to do dimension analysis. So dimensions in a very, and done is in a very simplest format. So what you will have list and subjects, you have schedules and the factual connect, and then you will have integration and feature. Okay. For what is the feature? What sits inside that schedule? Okay. Another theme, judiciary is one of the most important micro theme when it comes to prelims and mains. So when we talk about the collated themes that are equally relevant for prelims and mains, judiciary is that one thing. Even if you don't find any question of judiciary in 2025 4/6 paper, still do judiciary very, very well, really well. Okay, because for mains, trust me, you will have questions like that. in your this in your mains examination at least. All right, and if even if you're not getting direct questions from the judiciary, you will find an option related to judiciary in the options if you're getting in the prelims. This is a judiciary micro theme. So there are only two dimensions that you have to prepare judiciary for the prelims examination, that is power and jurisdiction of the court and the legal ministry. So for example, power court, so they'll ask, for example here, I'll do that. Okay, with reference to the Indian judiciary, these are the options that they have given. Any retired judge of the Supreme Court can be called to sit back. Okay, High Court in India has the power. So this is the related to the power. So the first dimension is power. In one dimension only you will do power, jurisdictions, and the functions. One part complete. This is, and let's just make one pager notes on that. One pager note will be there only for the power, functions, and the jurisdiction, and second will be related to the legal machinery, and third page one pager note will be related to peripheral concept. For example, contempt of court is there, any kind of current affair value addition you need to do, you will add it there. Is that clear? For example, legal services authority, they've asked a question about that. If they asked about HN Sanyal, okay, so this is like, for example, I'll show you court, jurisdiction, power. This is a function. These are the questions that they've asked. So for one pager, what you will do in one page, you will write jurisdiction, powers, and functions. Then second page, you will have legal machinery and peripheral concepts. And the third, you will leave for any kind of, if there is any kind of current affairs that you see, or if there is any kind of judicial interpretation that might be relevant, which is continuously in news, you will add that. Is that clear? This is this. You need only two pages for this particular theme, and it will contain both prelims and mains. So this is your, for example, this is flash notes. This is how it should look like. You see, this is see, when I'm saying that, see, original juris, this is Supreme Court of India. This is High Court. There is a comparison table. This is also a way that you can do it. What are the jurisdictions, what are the safeguards, what is related to the contempt, what is the source, all right, what is it, because contempt they already asked, UPSC has asked, if you've not read about it, you will find that in options again, and you'll see that, ma'am, I thought that because in the previously they asked, they would not repeat it. What kind of judges are there, what is the procedure for the removal of judges? So rather than going through like in a story wise basis, you should always refer to notes like these for the prelims examination. It really helps in comparison and reduces the confusion with factual recall, reduces that that problem that, okay, this is a close option. Let's do a very important theme for economy, and let the time in, and this is a micro theme of fiscal policy, and I will be taking this particular question here. So first thematic thing is about the recalls and facts. You will have static. For example, definitions will be there, components will be there, classification, provisions. For example, let's say consider the following statements. This is a question, okay? Consider the following statement. 2025 question is there. Capital receipts create a liability or cause a reduction in the assets of the government. Borrowings and disinvestment are capital receipts. Interest received on loans create a liability on the government. This is like a kind of this is what it, first of all, it is talking about the component of a capital receipt, and it is related to recalls and facts. Okay, about question related to FRBM. They're asking about what constitutes capital account. So you understand the first dimension is related to the definitions in the factual recall. Second will be applied reasoning, for which I am taking this 2026 question. Which of the following best describes the crowding out effect in the context of the fiscal policy? Crowding out effect was in the news as well, and hence the connect, but the concept is they asked about application. I'll show you the one page notes for means you in the later part of the video. A situation where private investment increases due to increased government spending, a situation where government borrowing leads to higher interest. So basically what they are asking about application based questions. So first is like factual based definitions, what it is, what is the definition, what it means, and second is like what it does, what is the cause and effect, what is the policy action, what is the scenario, how do you calculate x, okay, if that happens. So these are the questions that you have seen in the past, and this is what it will be repeated in the future as well. So here, revenue, capital budget, they are definitely asked about capital budget. Then they will probably ask you about revenue budget. They will maybe compare both. This is the next kind of, so what is the point of dimension analysis? Because once you do this, you will understand that probably there could be a comparison question in future. RBI, monetary policy, dimension 1, instruments. What are the instruments under the policy? Then cause and effect of moving. If this happens, if X happens, why happens? When does RBI take an action? What happens in the economy? Then RBI will take particular action. And this is one chapter, fiscal policy, and these two chapters I'm telling you focus in such a manner that they will ask you application based question. This is a guarantee that in future also you will get questions that are such that you will feel like they're reducing their factual thing, but they're asking more on the application based. For example, the first part is what are the instruments in the policy. This is the easiest. So you will see this. So when I'm telling you and showing you, you probably will feel, ma'am, where is the MCLR is coming? And this question is from 2016, but MCLR was in news not only in 2016, but has been news even like a year before or so. All right. Open market operation is one of the static concept that the UPSC keeps on asking about. Either options mein rahega or they will ask you directly. Okay, capital adequacy ratio was very important for the fact that because there was, if you've heard about a concept of non-performing assets, so capital adequacy ratio, even now it's very important. So they had asked this question, and कोई भी अच्छी decent source होगी ना आपको उसमें ये चीज आपको मिल जाएगी. But the problem will that कि will you focus on that? How much time would you spend again reading that? Even if they're not asking, going to ask a direct question, probably they'll ask you something related to, or they'll put it in an option. Okay, cause and effect of something. Okay, so for example, the money multiplier in an economy increases with which of the following? If you increase the CRR, if you increase the SLR, these are all the concepts that you'll get in the chapter of monetary policy. This is a third dimension. So this year, what they did, that they did not ask RBI in a direct format. What they did was that they actually gave three committees, and they gave that this is a particular thing, and tell me which of these organizations or institutions have had a committee or related to something like that. For example, here. But if you know that RBI is related to this functioning with this particular aspect of banking, you will be able to at least reduce one option. So multi-step reasoning and external linkages are also there. So this is the third dimension. So is it so far? I think probably I've cleared a lot of this thing about that. How do you do the DAE? DAE will only happen once you read the questions like maybe once or twice or thrice. But also as mentors, we make sure that in the initial level we try to give you as much as heads up, as much as like jump start with that step one. But after a point of time, it becomes easy, and you only have to do dimension analysis once anyway. So once you've done it with the mentor, you sit with the mentor and you've done it, there is no need to again go back, not until next year, right? And that dimensional analysis stays. Okay. So for example, you have finance and capital markets and regulators. What is the market, and which are the regulators when it comes to the capital markets and the instruments? These are the only two themes from which the questions have come, and only these are the things that you have to look when you're talking about the content in this particular thing. Nothing apart from that. All right. So markets and regulators, these are the questions related to that, details, functions, and agencies, and instruments. So what are the instruments? For example, what is certificate of deposit, commercial paper, promissory note, participatory note? These are the options. So what you need to do, you need to at least know about all these things. ये आपको बहुत अच्छे से याद होने चाहिए, क्योंकि ये आगे जाके भी आ सकता है. अब इन्होंने क्वेश्चन पूछा था यहाँ पे क्राउड फंडिंग के बारे में. दिस क्राउड फंडिंग एंड these are all part of the application of the instruments of the what are the instruments of the market, right? So ये न्यूज में था, और ये आप किसी भी अच्छी स्टैंडर्ड उसमें पढ़ोगे तो आपको ये समझ में आएगा कि they have always asked about these things. This is a repeated pattern. ठीक है. The best way to approach economic preparation. So a question is there. So best way to approach economic preparation is that always look at it from the first level, is that prepare first the conceptual part. All right. So any kind of book, I don't think so that there is a very good book for economy so far, but there are a few standard books that are out there. First of all, you have to make sure that once you understand that these are the micro themes, try to analyze that conceptual problem is not there. All right, because once you do the conceptual problem is not that, the revision becomes really fast. So the conceptual problem is not that. The second is that you try to analyze that what kind of current affair questions that the UPSC has been asking you, because there is a lot of news related to economies. Everything is relevant to you? No, not really, right? It's not. So let's say if I have to do it, so once I've done this, I know that no matter what, if they're going to ask me about the money multiplier, I'm not going to go wrong with the concept. The second thing is that I'm going to talk about instruments. So if they're asking about commercial paper, this and that, I'm going to make sure that I at least remember it in the way that if I get an option, or if I get it as an option or a direct question, I am able to eliminate. And that how happens. That will only be integrated if you attempt a lot of tests and you solve a lot of questions. The third integration will always be about more difficult questions, but about the application part. But difficult questions, maybe they'll ask you about some kind of index, maybe some kind of, and that comes from the budget and economic survey, which you always do in the later part. But make sure that you understand the concepts in a way that, like, maybe use technology and ask these questions that explain to me as I am 5 or 10, or like, so that it never, even if a question is asked to me in a different manner, I'm able to do it. Generally, men do help, generally they always do help the students to to make sure that the conceptual clarity is not lacking, through giving them test, through also sitting with them. All right, if you actually do the Civils Daily micro theme sheets, and if you do the flash notes and X factors, I think you will get at least 80% accuracy. However, we do suggest that go through NCRTs for the language part, because our language and everything is it is unique. But sometimes when you do NCRTs as well, you find that that is also like an amalgamation, because the language is pretty similar to how our language is also pretty similar to how the NCRTs are written. But that would something, one book probably I would say that NCRTs you can do. You will actually, it will be helpful for you, because for the language part only. That's that. Otherwise, I think if you do that, first of all, if you actually, it's not just that you're doing it. You never finish anything only based on the fact that I'm going to finish this one book. You have to revise that particular source multiple number of times to be able to produce anything in the paper. All right. If you want to cover the static concepts of economy, you can do it from the NCRTs. You will find it there, or any kind of decent standard book from the market, or you can do X factor notes. You will find flash notes and X factor notes that also contain all the static portion, right? IR topic, okay. So for the IR, so there's less in the deck, but I can explain it to you. But let's just do environment in a second, and then I will explain IR themes. Okay. So this is pollution and sources. So pollution and the sources. Why I've picked this up, because I'm telling you the from no, I do not take classes for SE. The SE is taken by Rohit Pandey sir and Srupti ma'am. They're like very excellent at what they do check them out, their videos out in the YouTube, it's available there. Okay, so for environment, let's say there's pollution and sources. So in pollution and sources, first of all, अगर मैं आपको अभी बोल रही हूँ कि आपको environment पढ़ना है, ठीक है? If you have a good mentors, first of all, they will tell you that please, when you're picking up Shankar IS or some book like that, half of the portion is not relevant anymore, because UPSC has already exhausted those questions. They're not going to about your ecotone or anything. The half of the book portion is done. So where do I want you to start? Okay, fine, just give it a reading, but start with pollution. Start with pollution, do species, and these are the micro themes that are here. Only do those and go into the depth. For example, I'll tell you. So the UPSC has asked about hula gibbons, they asked about sparrow, they asked about ants, they asked about tarantula, very random species. But the one thing that was very predictable was the kind of options were what they were. They asked about the habitat, where they're found, the nature, and one unique information. So here also, in the most unpredictable question also, they have given some predictability, and they had also asked a question related to elephant, and they also created only asked options in those 3 dimensions. Okay, if you've done NCRTs in the classes, I would suggest that go with the flash notes or X factor, because X factor for any standard book that you get from the market, probably what will happen is that you will not get means content, because for the economic part, I really feel this is my very so somebody has asked this question that whether X factors are enough for the mains examination. 100%. 100% more than enough. If you only do X factors really well and do the answer writing, reading is not enough. If you also do the answer writing, if you do the enough mocks and answer writing practice, I'm telling you, you would score really well. X factors are wonderful for that. The content is created in such a structure that if you have ready introductions, you have ready dimensions, you have ready conclusions. So what more do you need? All you need is to basically probably make 1 page of notes and revise it again and again, and try a lot of answer writing practice. So let's come back to this. So you have pollution sources. So pollution may, first of all, what is the dimension that is important? That the cause, activity, industry. These are the questions that are related to the causes. So what causes what kind of pollutants? For example, let's see this question. 2023. Consider the following statements regarding mercury pollution. Gold mining activity is a source. So, for example, what is the source? Then coal-based thermal power is also clause this, and there is no known safe level of exposure of mercury. At least, so when you see this, see, these are all the dimensions that are featuring on the sources and the causes of the pollution. Second is the process and the products that comes out of the pollution. Why there is concern about copper smelting plant, right? Which this question is here. Which of the following adds or add carbon dioxide to the carbon cycle on the planet Earth? Okay, so if the carbon dioxide carbon cycle ke bare mein hai, so what is this? This is volcanic action, respiration, photosynthesis. So here it matches to this particular dimension, the process and the byproducts. So sources, all right. And this is a single pollutant profile. What is single pollutant profile? And this is where people give a halo effect to environment question is that, for example, you will see bisphenol A, BPA, a cause of concern in the structural key component in the manufacturer XYZ. This is bisphenol. All right. What is triclosan? Now, the problem here is that these probably have been in the news. But one thing that you have to notice that this one particular question is not going to decide your rank or your selection in the prelims examination, right? So I probably, if I have to say, yes, it is available for pre as well. So X factors are there. You can use this for prelims and mains both. Now for the single pollutant profile, let's say this is what you're getting. If until unless you've not done these themes, the process and the byproducts, the source, cost, and industry, because here you will find some kind of, so example, CO2 emission, sulfur emission, nitrogen emission, XYZ emission, so mercury pollution. Here you have broader themes. This is just one part. All right, and these are the questions. So what you have to do when you're doing a particular micro theme related to pollution, so you have to first cover those broader themes, then you come back to this. And these are the X factor notes that are available for this. This is taken from X factors. So you asked about whether X factors will give me these. These are the X factors also that we have. This is available in the document. All right. The second micro theme is international organization, treaties, and environments. So first you have to understand the parent body and agencies. So these are the parent bodies and agencies. These are the questions that are related. Level 1, straight questions. This is the particular parent body. This is under this. This is under that. Yes, flash notes are part of UAP only. Again, what dimension is functions and membership or the character, binding versus non-binding, who signed, what year, and membership. This is the kind of the level 3 that you get. And these are the questions that are related to this. I'm not going to say that these questions are really easy. But here, where I have also mentioned in the beginning that this is where you need to integrate more current affairs. So you will integrate those current affairs with the help of Samachar Manthan. And these are the flash notes that I'm showing here, particularly related to this, which is relevant for your factual recall. Now, let's come to very briefly that what I think so far, do you know? So do you see that there is a clear pattern here, right? Now, once you've understood the pattern, what is the next step that you do? Okay, so how do you close the micro theme loop? You've understood the dimension analysis. The next thing is that you will read the standard book, you will read the flash notes, you'll discuss with the mentor, you'll do the X factors, and then you will make one pager notes. For one pager's note related to, let's say, prelims, this should be how it should look like. This is a history one pager notes. So somebody who has revised history is something they will understand that in the history they have asked questions about the English factories and where it is the place is controlled. Okay, so if you're not doing the dimension analysis, you will never be able to do it. But you have to make one pager like this. This is the information that you need. I've already shown you that mapping is very important. For me, map is in itself a micro theme. Whether it comes to IR, whether it comes to geography, it is a theme. So you have to make your own, try to do your own maps. But when you're doing your own maps, if you're doing a river system, I think you can download super maps itself. But if you're doing your own maps, try to add that periphery information as well, because you see that there is no direct question that they're asking anymore, right? So it helps that if you try to do it in that manner. Mapping, for example, this is national park. Okay, this is all topper one pager notes that I'm showing you. Okay, our UAP and Smash Main students have created these notes. I think I did that. These are all the dimensions that were some. So you want dimensions. So you want a document. See, this is the one pager note. So I showed you that we discussed river system. So river system, we discussed the dimension. So let's say this is a particular river. Then you have origin. Then you have states that it is passing through, and then you have those unique features that you need. Look at this very closely. So if you have done the dimension, what is the next thing? The next thing is that you're going to do this in this, make notes in this manner. Okay, is this clear? Now let's move to next part. Okay, this is also a kind of a prelims one pager notes for the soil. So you have alluvial soil, black soil, red soil. So you write, take a screenshot of this probably, and just make this one page is going to help you, and you don't have to make any other notes apart from this. You just read it again and again and again, try with the test, and you will see that uh, see this. This is for the soil. This is for the Himalayas. Okay. And why I'm showing you this, because I I always encourage my students to have understanding in the sense अपनी language में लिखना खुद से भी लिखना जरूरी होता है. But if you don't write it, this is exactly how you find the flash notes also. But if you're making one pager notes for prelims, your prelims one pager should look like this. Okay. Now let's come to UPSC mains. So local self-government is a micro theme for UPSC mains. Why? Because these are the kind of questions that you're getting from the particular theme. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. These are the 8 questions that have been asked from the local self-government in the mains examination. What is the dimension? So the dimension, once you see these, if I from one question, if I try to get the dimension out, for example, let's say pick up one question. The first question is, the local self-government system in India has not proved to be effective instrument of governance. Critically examine the statement and give your views to improve the situation. Okay. So the first dimension is challenges. The second dimension is positive changes. And third dimension that you get is suggest the measures. If you see all these things, what you will find that there will be overlap of dimensions. So once there are overlap of dimensions, what happens? You come up with these major dimensions. What do you need? You need role of local bodies. You need to have notes on challenges. You need to read pros and cons of merging RLBs and ULBs, role of fund functionaries and functionaries, importance of PRIs and ULBs, sources of PRIs and ULBs, reasons for the limited impact, and suggest the measures. Okay, so these are the major dimensions for which you have to make one pager notes and for which you should have good content. This is kingdoms and highlights. So these are the micro themes. Okay, this is a micro theme of kingdoms and highlights. These are the questions that they have asked. Now, from that, whatever they have asked, you need to have this. These are the major dimensions. See, art and architecture, okay, polity and administration, economy, technology, and trade, religion. Take a screenshot of this. Religion and culture, significance, demand, and this is the last dimension. Understand? From this, you will get this. Now, this is GS2. For GS2, let's say these are the functions and responsibilities of the union and the states, issues and challenges of federal structure. And what is the micro theme? Federalism. Federalism, so far you have had 10 questions. Okay. All right. I'll explain this through this particular topic. So this is a federalism theme. ये means की micro theme है. अब question देखो यहाँ पे. पहला ही question देखो. Okay. Just look at the first question. Examine the evolving pattern of center-state financial relations in the context of planned development in India. So, how far has the recent reforms impacted the fiscal federalism in India? First question, tell me what is the major dimension from this particular first question. Just write in the chat. क्या कीवर्ड क्या दिख रहा है आपको? डायरेक्टिव तो भूल जाइए, कीवर्ड क्या है? फेडरलिज्म तो माइक्रो थीम हो गई. फिस्कल फेडरलिज्म, परफेक्ट. So what is that? Financial relations between center and state, perfect. More fiscal federalism, okay. Is it also think about the types of federalism is important? Can we think about that? GST Council maybe, but not to that extent. There's impact. Yes. Yes, perfect. So center-state relationship. Center, so what kind of relationships in the center? Federalism talks about that. सेंटर स्टेट रिलेशनशिप के बैलेंस को क्रिएट करने के लिए फेडरलिज्म होता है. ठीक है. देन देयर आर टाइप्स ऑफ फेडरलिज्म. दे आस्क्ड फिस्कल फेडरलिज्म. नेक्स्ट टाइम probably they could ask you about asymmetric federalism. See this question. See if the question number, this one, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. How far do you think cooperation, competition, and confrontation have shaped the nature of federalism? Cite some recent example to validate your answer. This question talks about cooperative federalism, competitive federalism, both. So again, first and here you get the dimension. What do you get the dimension? That types of federalism is important. And another dimension that you both get is from this is that what is the nature of Indian federalism? What is the nature? Okay, so here what you have to understand, two dimensions we have taken out. Now, if you read all these questions, what you will get is this. So, first dimension from this is constitutional design of federalism. That is, what is federal principle versus strong center bias? What is the basic structure? What is the quasi federal nature? Then, fiscal federalism, right? What is the nature? Then, centralizing tendencies. And this is all from the previous questions only. What are the models? So, cooperative, competitive, confrontational. What are the drawbacks of having a cooperative federalism? Then, interstate and center state relations are very important. Okay. Then, the last dimension that always should be there, that is, what is the way forward and what are the challenge and what are the way forward. When you making mains micro themes, two things have to be there. What are the challenges? But never move away from the challenges. You always have to provide what solutions. This is the X factor connect that I'm trying to show you. So, what are the mechanisms? Cooperative federalism, legislative, executive, fiscal, institutional. This is a mechanism of cooperative federalism. What is the case studies? These are the kind of X factor. Why we call this X factor is because these are the kind of keywords. If you write in your answer, you'll always get extra. You'll fetch marks. These are not generic points which you'll find in the X factor notes. They're like, they have some, like, you can't find something like that in the market. Then you have, like, for example, e-governance. So e-governance also, you have what kind of dimensions would you get from based on these questions that are there? These are the dimensions. What is the significance? Why do you need e-governance? Then what is the evolution of e-governance? Then what are the model of e-governance? That is service delivery versus interaction model. Okay. The broad things will have deeper dimensions. The X factors are not available at Hindi at this particular time. See, the broad themes will actually be divided into micro themes. For example, let's say kingdoms. Kingdoms is a theme. So kingdoms and literature becomes a micro theme. Kingdoms versus administration becomes a micro theme. So the micro theme document that you will download and have will always have those dimensions broadly divided into, for example, I showed you for the parliament how we have divided it. So for any kind of broad theme also we have divided into the micro theme. Micro theme is something for which we get more questions. Two to three questions have to come from that particular topic. Then you will see that. Okay. So this is for e-governance. E-governance is what was the ideation to make UPSC predictable? First of all, we have to see that okay, this is a particular topic. I have seen this. This is the major micro theme. This is the most important micro theme that I have to cover. Then I will mine the dimensions. Once I've mined the dimensions, I will make one pager notes. And what is the next step? The next step is you have to try writing at least the PYQ questions ke answers on your own, or give the test and sit with your mentor and understand where is the fault and find the course correction. Yes, okay. So I'm discussing that. For example, I'm discussing for different papers. So let's see, this is economic development, right? This is UPSC PYQs. Food processing sector is like, for us, let's say I'm saying food processing sector is a micro theme for us because these many questions in the past have been taken up. Understand this. Elaborate on the policy taken by the government of India to meet the challenges of the food processing sector. One dimension is the challenges, and second dimension is the what is the government steps taken about it. Then second question is elaborate the scope and significance of the food processing industry. Two dimensions, scope and significance. Scope and significance are here. Third is that what are the challenges and opportunities of food processing sector in the country. ऊपर वाले क्वेश्चंस को देखो, ऑलरेडी एक जगह चैलेंजेस दिया हुआ है, तो यहाँ पे ओवरलैप हो गया, तो वन मेजर थीम क्या हो गई, यहाँ पे डायमेंशन कौन सी होगी, चैलेंजेस, और अगेन अपॉर्चुनिटीज अगर पूछ रहा है तो यानी कि उसका मतलब यही है दैट दे आर टॉकिंग अबाउट सिग्निफिकेंस. तो तीन यहाँ पे डायमेंशन आपकी बनती है, दैट इज चैलेंजेस, सेकंड इज सिग्निफिकेंस, एंड व्हाट आर द स्टेप्स टेकन बाय द गवर्नमेंट. नाउ the question is, what are the impediments in the marketing and supply chain management in the developing of the food processing sector? अब यहाँ पे आप थोड़ा प्रोसेस यहाँ पे ब्रांच आउट करोगे, ठीक है, क्योंकि उन्होंने क्या पूछा है, कैन ई कॉमर्स हेल्प इन ओवरकमिंग दिस बॉटलनेक्स. अब व्हाट यू विल डू, मार्केटिंग एंड सप्लाई चेन पे एक डायमेंशन आप अलग ऐड करोगे. क्यों करना पड़ेगा? क्योंकि यूपीएससी ने इस पे सवाल पूछा है, ठीक है. ये पर्टिकुलर एक चीज ज्यादा इंपॉर्टेंट है. इट्स अ 12.5 मार्क का क्वेश्चन, ठीक है. What are the reasons for the poor acceptance of the cost-effective small processing unit? How the food processing unit will be helpful to uplift the socio-economic status of significance of food processing industry? Again, यहां से तुम्हारा डायमेंशन बन गया. इज दिस क्लियर सो फार? अब समझ में आ रहा है कि डायमेंशन कैसे बनी फ्रॉम दिस एग्जाम्पल, राइट? चैलेंजेस हो गया, पॉलिसीज एंड लिमिटेशंस. देखो स्कोप क्या है, सिग्निफिकेंस अगेन, चैलेंजेस, अपॉर्चुनिटीज, रोल. ठीक है. फिर मार्केटिंग एंड सप्लाई चेन मैनेजमेंट, रोल ऑफ ई कॉमर्स, इसको अलग से कर लेना. इसके भले रिपीटेड नहीं है बट क्योंकि यूपीएससी ने पूछा है तो आपको ये करना पड़ेगा. फिर देन रीजंस क्या है, फिर से अगेन तो अगेन दिस विल कम आउट एट व्हाट द फैक्टर कि हमको फिर से सिग्निफिकेंस पे तो जाना ही है. एक मेजर मेरा यहाँ से इंसाइट ये है कि मुझे फूड प्रोसेसिंग की सिग्निफिकेंस के बारे में और जो चैलेंजेस हैं उसकी डायमेंशन को थोड़ा एक्सपैंडेड वे पे लिखना है, क्योंकि मैं देख रही हूँ कि तेरा उन्होंने थोड़ा सा निटी ग्रिटीज में पूछा है. तो डायमेंशन एनालिसिस से क्या होता है, आपको ये पता होता है कि आपको किसी भी माइक्रो थीम को कितनी डेप्थ में करना है. दिस इज एक्स फैक्टर का मीन्स की. सो जैसे पोटेंशियल significance of food processing sector, increased contribution to the GDP and abundance of natural resources. The keywords पे ध्यान देना, ठीक है. यहाँ पे 11th देखो, न्यूट्रिशनल इंप्रूवमेंट. ठीक, इस टाइप के कीवर्ड्स आपको लिखने होंगे. राइजिंग डिमांड फॉर प्रोसेस्ड फूड, इस तरीके के डायग्राम्स यहाँ आपको एक्स फैक्टर के अंदर मिल जाएंगे और आपको ये इसी तरीके से बिल्कुल अगर वन पेजर बनाना है तो सिर्फ कीवर्ड्स के थ्रू बना लो, बट दिस इज व्हाट इज नीडेड फॉर अ गुड आंसर. Otherwise, trust me, you won't get marks. How will you synthesize it? So write the keywords. So there is a thing called dimension, argument and example. सारे का सारे एक्स फैक्टर्स जो होते हैं उसी तरीके से बने होते हैं. तो पहली रीडिंग में तो एक बार एक्स फैक्टर्स को अच्छे से रीड करो और उसी में मार्क कर लो. सेकंड क्या करो कि एटलीस्ट जो वन पेजर बनाने हैं तो उसमें इसके जो कीवर्ड्स हैं उसको कीवर्ड्स को लिख लो और सिर्फ जो एग्जाम्पल या डेटा है उसको नेक्स्ट पे लिख लो. दैट्स इट हाउ यू विल मेक इट, एंड लीव स्पेस फॉर करंट अफेयर्स, क्योंकि समाचार मंथन के थ्रू ना करंट अफेयर्स थोड़ा बहुत ऐड होता रहेगा तो उसको फिर आप ऐड कर सकते हो. ठीक है. So these are the micro themes, one page notes for the mains examination. Okay. So I think so far I feel I have shown you a lot. And dimension analysis का micro theme loop complete करने के लिए this is what you need. Okay, these are the kind of themes that you need. And I am telling you, without this, it is not going to work. And downloading the PDF is also just 10%. This is, if you don't do this, you will not be able to finish it off.